You guys good to go here? All right, we ready? Okay. All right, obviously coming off the open date, I thought we got a lot of good work done last week. You know, I think pretty evident watching college football this weekend. Each team has its own set of problems. You know, I think it's important as the season goes. It's about coming up with solutions, you know, and I think you got to do a good job. Your team has to improve as you go, and open dates present that opportunity. And we certainly got a lot of good work done. I think that we were strategic about each player on the team in terms of where we're at from a health perspective, but I do think the majority of our team got really good work. And I was impressed with the attitude and the effort and the energy of the players. I thought the staff did a good job. They showed up each day, and we worked Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Players were off Friday, Saturday, and we were back at it yesterday. So, yeah, specific plans for each player, for each position group, and then obviously the units, the team as a whole. And I thought we made some progress there. So I do think that it's a big week. It's good to be back at home after being away for a couple of weeks. And a good Texas team comes to town. Obviously, 3-1 with a road loss to a really good Ohio State team. And it's evident, you can see this team's got an identity. PK does a great job on defense. I think that they've gotten incrementally better each cycle. They continue to add wrinkles each year to make them a little bit more difficult to prepare for. And the personnel is exceptional. Very experienced group on the second and third level at linebacker, and in secondary almost all back. And then good edge players, and then probably 5 portal defensive tackles that all have height, length, girth, power. That can cause some problems for you. And then obviously offensively, Sark does a great job with the formation motion, the combination of run, play, pass, and then the situational football. And they're breaking in a new quarterback. Arch's obviously reputation speaks for itself, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And, you know, I think that they are breaking in new players at other positions, up front, tight end, running back, receiver. So more new faces on the offensive side of the ball, and I do think you can see their rhythm getting better each week. So Banks does a really good job in special teams, very unique, very aggressive, and they have height, length, and speed, which make them a difficult prep. But overall, all 3 parts of their team, I think it's going to be a huge week for us in terms of preparation. Obviously, started a little bit last week, but it'd be good to be at home, and that needs to be a huge advantage for us. We're going to need our fans to be there and be a major factor, as they usually are. And this has got a chance to be a pretty special venue and atmosphere Saturday afternoon. What questions do we have?
A lot of curiosity, obviously, about the offense during the bye week. What did you feel like you accomplished, and what were some of the, points of emphasis or concerns in terms of that?
Yeah, I think more. We did quite a bit of just 11-on-11 full-speed work with DJ. Just trying to get caught up for him. I think that was important. Just more live bullets, with him and the other players. And I think that that's what he needs, and I think that that's ultimately what we decided to go with. So we did quite a bit of competitive work, 1s-on-1s, 2s-on-2s. Obviously, some of the players that have played a lot of snaps around here, we tried to take care of. But, in general, I thought that was beneficial for him and what he needed.
What strides do you need to see from him, you think? And did you hear him after the game or what he said? He basically guarantee, he's like, I guarantee this isn't going on anymore. It's not okay, the way I'm playing right now, or we're
Right.
playing.
Well, that's the kid he is, you know. I think he's his character, his ownership. He's never one to blame others, you know. I think when you, so I think that's just who he is in general. His leadership, and look, he's been pretty transparent about how he feels and what he needs to do. And look, we need to play better around him. You know, I think each position group needs to step up, more detail, and eliminating errors, you know, eliminating penalties, whatever the case may be. I just think more detail, better overall play around him, and then obviously he needs to continue to get back closer to being himself. So, yeah, I thought he was really sharp Thursday. And I think that's important going into a couple of days off. So, look, every team's a work in progress, and I think that's where we're at. So, you know, the key here is let's go make today a great day, right? And I think we control our attitude and our effort and our energy today. And, you know, we'll get some rest tonight. We'll show up and do it again tomorrow.
When you said Thursday, because last year, I think you referenced later in the season, how that Thursday practice was like maybe one of the best you'd seen. Did you see something, any spark last week, maybe similar to a year ago that might ignite this thing?
Yeah, seeing a look in Tu's eye, I think that's important. You know, I think that's ultimately, you know, I'm trying to get, we're trying to do our best for him, you know, in terms of creating an environment where he can continue to get back in his rhythm. You know, that's the most important thing right now. So, and that includes not only his contribution, that's the staff's contribution, that's the players at each position that play around him. So I think it's, you know, a lot of people saying, hey, we just need a spark, right? Well, the challenge is how about everybody take ownership and be the spark, right? So I think that's been the approach.
Really going back to DJ, when we asked before the spring about play calling, you said that one of the reasons that you wanted to keep doing it was for continuity in the system, specifically at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
His offseason that he had, how much do you feel like that has not only set him back, but just set the offense back as to where you thought or expected it to be?
Well, I think, you know, look, we all understand this is a game that's made up of preparation. It's made up of, it's a repetition game, right? And in particular, the quarterback position. I just think every time that ball comes off your hand, you know, you communicated that play, you processed that play, and you had to do it in real time, and you get the feedback from the rep, right? Knowing what you can get away with, how that felt. You know, you're working on the physical, you're working on the mental, and then there's an emotional component that comes from the benefit of doing the work, right? So, you know, I think, and that's a completely different experience than standing behind and getting mental reps or being over there on the bike, you know, whatever the case may be. So I just think it's such a feedback-driven position, you know, and you're constantly self-correcting at the quarterback position, you know, and I think that there's no substitute for that. So I think that's ultimately why we've went with the approach last week, and then certainly a few tweaks to how we're going to practice this week to try to help ramp that up a little bit.
My understanding is that you asked your staff during the bye week to give them suggestions on what they thought you guys could do better on offense. How much did that happen? How much was important for you to get that feedback and just try to find solutions?
Yeah, no, I look, I think great teams, great staffs. You know, players have a voice. People, then you're trying to empower your people and give them ownership of their responsibility. And certainly we've done that. We did it last year. I think it's one of the reasons we were able to continue to improve, you know, and that's the goal, is to continue to improve as the season goes. That's the most important part. So I think it's been healthy and much needed. So I think it's been a positive.
Third down offense, I mean, how much did you and your staff break that down during the bye week? And is it a case of, too many third and longs, or how do you view that, or how do you view correcting that?
Yeah, the numbers are a little out of whack in terms of you'd like to play a few more under 7, if that makes sense. Once you get to 7+, the analytics are against you, but you'd like to keep it at 6 or less. 7's even okay, right? But we're definitely a little higher end. And then we've had a couple penalties in some of these situations where we go from 2 to 7 or 1 to 6, and I think that those have been costly. So, yeah, I think you're spot on. We keeping third down manageable is important. And then you get on the plus side of the field, you benefit from 2-down approach on occasion. But, yeah, less exotics when you can run it. But any football team, I don't care who you are, the best in the game, you don't want to be living in long yardage situations. And certainly that's the case each week. It'll be really important this week too.
Billy, going back to the play calling aspect of it, some head coaches around the country have given that duty up just because of everything going on with the change of the sport. What ultimately gives you the conviction that this is the right decision for you and your team?
Well, it's year 8 for me, and I think it's the way we've done it. And I think it helped us get here, and it helped us. But, I mean, look, I think that there's a lot of guys that are still doing it too, right? I mean, you could argue both ways here, right? So I watched several that were doing it this weekend. So I think each year you're evaluating what is best for the team, for the staff. And certainly I think with who we had coming back, the quarterback in particular, I think is a huge piece of that puzzle, right? In terms of the verbiage, the system, the dialogue, how you teach the quarterback. I think that's a big piece of the puzzle. And then certain situations present maybe an opportunity for a reset, right? And I think that you're always just evaluating what's best for this team, right? And I think, we're trying, that's ultimately what drives every decision that we do. No different than a lot of the changes that we made in the past, right? So I get it. Look, anytime, there's a lot of teams out there this weekend that struggled, and there's going to be criticism when you're not as productive, and that contributes to the team not winning. No different than, when you give up a lot of points, there's criticism on the other side, right? So I think we've got to play complementary football. And, this is a defense that we've worked 4 years on building and preparing, and they're playing at a high level. And we have to continue that. And now we have to get back to playing better on offense. I do think that the kicking game has become a weapon for us. The punt return game, our specialist play. So, we've struggled a little bit here the first month, and I think we all know that. I know that, our players know that, and certainly our fans know that.
We've asked you about analytics before, and coaches seem to vary about the value of a site like Pro Football Focus, for example. When you're assessing post-game film, how much stock do you put in that when you're assessing an individual player's contributions? Because fans out there seem to see the grade and think that it's going to determine how well someone fared necessarily.
No, I think that we have access to more information than we've ever had before, and I do think that's a tool, right? I always say it's a lead, right? And you want to use every lead you can find, but then you've got to evaluate the body of work. The play design, the intent of the play, exactly what happened. So your own in-house evaluation is important. We use it in the portal process. I think it's a tool that's helped us in the past. It's a lead, right? So I think ultimately that's what you're looking for and using it for. But look, we use PFF every single day. The amount of information that we have access to, NFL tape, college tape, when you're looking for ideas, how you use certain types of players. I mean, there's all types of. It's a tool that it's essentially a database that you have access to every day.
Really, from a health standpoint, how did the bye week help you? Are you better off now than where you were a couple of weeks ago? So,
yeah, came at a good time. I do think some of the guys that maybe wouldn't have been available if we played Saturday, I think we'll get back. And then obviously we still have some bangs and bruises that are hanging around that will hopefully make progress throughout the week. But in general, yes, some of those guys that maybe couldn't play Saturday if we'd played, I do think we'll anticipate getting those guys back. So it came in a good time. Obviously, Dallas Wilson would be the headliner. You know, for him to be able to practice last week and be available is a big deal.
How does he look, and what can we expect from his contributions, given how much time he's missed?
Yeah, no, you know, we'll see as we go throughout the week. But 3 good days of work last week, and I thought he handled the load well. And we'll be getting a report each day in terms of what the numbers look like and where he's at. So, but he feels really good, and so far so good.
And practice last week during the bye, how did you structure things? Did you split the team up like you did last year?
We did.
Have like a competition?
We did.
How'd that go?
It was good. Wednesday, Thursday was really positive.
Billy, you're averaging only 6.8 yards per pass attempt, which is really, really low. Is that a case of not having enough time for DJ or not running enough vertical routes? What do you
Yeah, I
think?
think it's definitely an area where we need to improve, whether it is missed opportunities or protection issues or just lack of called vertical plays. You know, I think there's parts of that as well. So I think all things contribute to it, and we need to do a better job in the vertical passing game. I think it was a point of emphasis last week.
Billy, there was a report by On3 that because of the bye week, there was no traveling for recruiting. Just curious, is that a unique situation with this bye week, knowing you have another one later, or just how the difference between week to week for recruiting?
Yeah, a lot of it is where players are playing, who they're playing. That schedule is set before the season even starts. So we have a certain number of days, and those days are allocated based off of where we're at, who's playing, where they're playing. So we typically maximize each one of those opportunities.
Cormani McClain's kind of been breaking out a little bit. He had one of his PFF best graded games of his career. Now with Dijon out, how much do we kind of see him step up, and what are you kind of looking for as a guy who's...
Yeah, Cormani has continued to make progress. Look, I think the guy is it's a great story. I think the guy has really matured. He's become more dependable, more accountable, and those are the abilities that matter when you're as talented as he is. You know, I think it's about being dependable, accountable, consistent. You know, I think you can go all the way back to January. I don't think the guy's had a 6 a.m. the entire offseason. So this is a guy who took the feedback from last year. He's evolved. He's actually got a new haircut, too. I think you guys get to talk with him on Wednesday. So, yeah, good look in his eye. He's cleaned his life up. Lot of positive here and a huge ceiling, right, in terms of what this guy can become. I'm proud of him, but, you know, it's important for him to continue that trend, right? And so he keeps stacking days, and I think that keep building that reputation, keep writing that story, and I think that he's in the middle of that. He's still a very young man, very young player. And certainly it's a big opportunity for him to step up and be there for his teammates.
I think we asked you last week about Aiden Mizell. What happened? I mean, we got him on Wednesday and then he doesn't play.
Yeah, wasn't available late in the week. Had a little bit of a setback, and then game time decision and was not ready. So that's ultimately what it came down to.
Is he one of the guys who you think might be ready this week?
We do. But right now, if we were playing today, he'd be playing.
I don't think we asked you about Aaron Gates either. How about his injury?
Yeah, we'll give you the injury report. We do anticipate potentially getting Aaron back. But that's going to be day to day depending on kind of how that goes, you know. But I think we got good news on that front. And then obviously you'll get an injury report on Wednesday night. Who?
J. Mike.
Oh, yeah.
Kofi was pretty flashed in limited work. what has he done to get himself to this point and
Yeah.
be
Yeah, Kofi's a great story in terms of another portal player that has done a nice job. You know, I think he's gained probably 25 pounds. He's really improved as a run defender. I think point of attack, play strengths, using his length, his motor. Same motor he had at UMass, but I think he's just bigger, stronger, and then his fundamentals have improved. And then he's got unique length. I mean, we're talking an 85 wing. So, yeah, we needed him to step up with George being not available, and he played, and he's been a good special teams player as well. So he's a guy that shows up. His attitude, his energy. You'll get a chance to talk to him Wednesday. I think that's a good story for sure.
How many changes did you make last week? I mean, you guys went in like knowing that things have to change. I mean, did you
Yeah.
make personnel changes? Did you create competitions at certain spots and try to see who kind of rose to the
Yeah,
top?
a little bit of all the above. I think, yeah, you're looking for, yeah, you're collaborating with players and staff and trying to listen. You're trying to, you also kind of know the obvious too, right? So I think, yeah, that's the biggest thing. And look, we're a team. I think we can defend. I think our specialists are really good. I think we have to, you know, really understand who we are, what we do well, and then we have to evolve. Each week we got to get incrementally better here. And obviously the challenges aren't going away, right? Each week's going to be a heck of a football game from this point forward. So, you know, I think that the key is that we control today, right? You know, I think sometimes we sit around thinking about dwelling on the past, and I think you don't have time to do that. You know, I think as a leader, and then as an individual within the organization, you have a job to do. So I think you got to take ownership of your role, and then you got to have a great day to day. So that's the challenge. Can we? I think the open date gives them a little bit of take a deep breath, and then, all right, we know what we got to do. Let's go do it.
You mentioned the deep passing game. I think versus Miami, Lagway had his lowest ADOT in his career.
Yeah.
What is getting a guy like Dallas Wilson and even J. Mike, who's been a little banged up, getting them going in the deep passing game, getting Dallas back? How does that kind of help that get going?
Yeah, I think, look, when your best players are available, that definitely helps, you know. So I think that's part of it. But look, it's all parts here. It's not one specific thing. I think it's a number of things, and we're all trying to solve it. I appreciate you guys trying to help us out too.
Miles Graham, in particular, I know you guys talked about him in the offseason growing as a leader and now stepping into a starting role. With the struggling start, how have you seen him maybe take the reins of this team and maybe try to get guys to rally around his level of play?
Yeah, no, Miles is outstanding. Miles is smart. He is a big picture thinker. I think he has leadership traits. We want him to be more vocal. That's an inside linebacker room that's deep. You know, I wish we played 2 games a week so all those guys would get a chance to play as much as they deserve to play. But they're all really good players and done a great job. So Miles will, you know, this is his first year as a starter, and I think we're continually working on, you know, him finding his voice as a leader, being that alpha. And I think he gets a little bit better each opportunity as he gets more experience in the games. All right, guys. Thank you.